25 spine-chilling ghost encounters exposed on camera. Terrifying unexplained footage revealed. The moment Sarah stepped foot into the old community center, a chill crept down her spine. Dim lights flickered overhead, casting ghoulish shadows that danced along the peeling walls. She could almost hear the mocking laughter of her two kids echoing in her mind, reminding her why she was here at this hour, desperate for cash. The center was a crumbling relic, rumored to be haunted, and tonight, it felt especially alive with whispers of the past. As she set her cleaning supplies down, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The air was thick, heavy with history and something unnameable. Each time she heard a rustle behind her, she jumped, though she knew it was just her imagination playing tricks in the empty hall. Alone in this dark, forgotten place, every creak of the floor felt like the ghosts of forlorn families were warning her to leave. But how could she? Bills were piling up, and foreclosure loomed over her head like a storm cloud. The first night was manageable. A few flickering lights, shadows lurking at the corners of her vision. But she pressed on, determined to document her nights for a social media challenge. "This'll be fun," she assured herself, envisioning the likes and comments sparking joy in her otherwise mundane life. But after the first video, she felt a shiver when she glimpsed something move just beyond the frame, a fleeting shadow that sent a hot wave of panic through her stomach. Was it just haphazard editing or something more sinister? "Nah, it's all in my head," she whispered, shaking off the dread as she scrubbed the grimy floor. But each night, the energy twisted around her, a cold presence tickled her neck, breathless whispers kissed her ear. She could feel the whispers nestling deep within her, feeding her fear. Her heart raced as unexplainable happenings piled up, chairs moving on their own, windows creaking open without a breeze, laughter echoing through empty halls. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. After rifling through a loose floorboard, she uncovered a stash of old newspaper clippings. Headlines spoke of storms, misfortunes, and families trapped inside, their lives snuffed out like candles. Each article dripped with tragedy, weaving a tapestry of despair. As she read, a deep-seated fear rooted itself within her. These spirits were real, and they didn't want to be forgotten. One night, shaking from a fit of anxiety, she caught sight of her elderly neighbor, Mr. Thompson. He stood on his porch, watching her with eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. He was always a strange man, but tonight, the way he leaned into the porch's dim light made him look like something out of a nightmare. "You shouldn't be here," he said with a booming whisper. "This place holds secrets best left alone." The anticipation built up inside her, gnawing away at her sanity like teeth on fragile skin. With her phone lighting the way, she recorded her every move, but the messages from her audience grew frantic. "Get out," they begged. Shadows grew long, and icy drafts slipped through the corridors. As midnight approached, Sarah's heart raced. A flicker of movement caught her eye, the unmistakable form of a shadow darting between the hallways, far too fast and fluid. She gasped, chilling air swirling around her. The screen buzzed as chaos erupted in her comments, warnings flooding in. Suddenly, it became impossible to distinguish the phantoms of her imagination from the stark terror enveloping her. Was it the spirits of the center she should fear, or something more malevolent lurking in her own neighborhood? With questions pounding in her mind, she clutched her camera and prepared for whatever lay ahead, determination and dread battling within her. Something was waiting, and Sarah couldn't escape the haunting truth that her fight had just begun. Sarah took a deep breath, her heart pounding as she stepped deeper into the dimly lit hallway. Shadows stretched and shifted, concealing what may lurk just beyond her vision. She could still feel the weight of Mr. Thompson's warning echoing in her mind, his voice like a dark omen. Had the spirit stirred with her presence, or was it simply her imagination spiraling out of control? With the camera cradled tightly in her hands, she aimed to capture evidence of the unknown. The screen flickered with a life of its own, showing only black and gray images that did little to quell her growing unease. This was supposed to be fun, she murmured to herself, but the chills seeping through her bones told a different story. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from the storage room at the far end of the hall. The sound reverberated through the space like the roar of an angry beast. Sarah jumped, her stomach dropping. It's just the wind, she tried to convince herself. But deep down, she knew. This place was not only haunted, it was hungry. As she edged closer, her senses began to heighten. The smell of mildew mixed with something far more foul, like rotting flesh. She pressed her lips together, willing the bile back down her throat. I have to see, she said, voice barely above a whisper. The allure of the unknown sucked her in, and to turn back now seemed impossible. Each step felt heavier until she reached the door. Pushing it open, darkness swallowed her whole. She flicked on her phone's flashlight, illuminating what looked like an apocalyptic landscape of broken furniture, forgotten memories, and cracked walls covered in grime. The sight was eerie, yet familiar. Like walking through the pages of a nightmare she'd once had. But she wasn't alone. The cold air whipped around her, whispers washing over her, a chorus of voices she couldn't quite make out. Sarah's breath quickened, sliding in and out in sharp gasps as she swung the flashlight around. The beam caught something in the corner, a fleeting glimpse of an old photograph pinned to the wall. She stepped closer. The picture showed a family huddled together, their faces frozen in time. But the more she stared, the more their expressions twisted into grotesque masks of despair. One woman's eyes seemed to follow her. Just when she thought she could hear their silent pleas, the air shifted. A loud bang from behind her sent her spinning around. The door slammed shut. Panic welled up inside her as she clawed at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Open. Let me out. She screamed, her voice echoing against the walls. But the silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Then, her camera vibrated violently, a notification flashing across the screen, "Get out now." With trembling hands, Sarah turned back to confront whatever darkness lurked within the room. Shadows morphed and twisted into something solid. A figure slowly emerged from the darkness. It was tall, featureless, clad in the remnants of an old-fashioned suit, with features that warped and shifted as if viewed through water. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, feeling every pulse of fear grinding down on her. She stumbled backward, hitting the door as her throat closed up. "What do you want?" She stuttered, but there was no answer. Only a shrill laugh filled the air, the laugh of someone who had long forgotten joy. As the figure stepped closer, she could hear the faint sound of crying emerging from its distorted mouth. A pit of despair opened in her stomach. Whatever this entity was, it carried the weight of countless tragedies, drawing her further into its fold. Sarah suddenly felt icy tendrils wrap around her wrists, pulling her closer. She screamed, struggling against the invisible grip. Just as she thought she would be consumed by the darkness, a new message lit up her phone, a plea from her viewers: "Don't look away." The words echoed in her mind as terror replaced all rational thought. But what would she do now? Could she face the figure and uncover its connection to the story she had stumbled into? Time was slipping away, and she had to act. Before the darkness pulled her under for good. What would she uncover when she faced the truth that lay behind that soul-wrenching ghoul? Would she find a way to escape, or was she destined to join the ranks of those lost in the community center's haunted past? The entity loomed closer, its form now almost defined against the flickering light from Sarah's phone. Panic surged through her, and her mind raced, thoughts colliding. What had Mr. Thompson meant by his warning? What was this thing? Her camera vibrated again, this time with urgent intensity. "Don't look away." The fear rendered her frozen. She could barely think. The whispers swelled, wrapping around her ears, combining into a devastating symphony of despair. "What do you want from me?" She screamed again, louder this time, trying to drown out the cacophony. The figure stopped, just a heartbeat away. Its face was a shifting void, a dark spot in the fabric of reality that seemed to suck in all light. No distinct features emerged, yet she felt its gaze piercing through her, as if it was searching for something deep within her soul. With a rush of adrenaline, Sarah willed her legs to move. She had to get away, but that invisible grip tightened painfully around her wrists. It was not just the fear, it was the weight of agony the entity carried that pressed down on her. She felt the grief of countless souls, each a thread woven into the dark tapestry of the community center. "Please," she gasped, "I just want to leave." The words hung in the air, each syllable trembling in the thick, stagnant atmosphere. The figure twisted, elongating into more grotesque forms, screams echoed, blurred faces appeared, and she recognized glimpses of the family from the photograph, their asylum reducing to silent witnesses. They, too, wanted something she had to unlock. The flashlight flickered once more. Sarah's heart raced. She grabbed her phone tighter, the light revealing the edge of the room, showing her an exit among the shadows, a window dusty, but weakly illuminated. It was a possible escape. With every ounce of strength, she pulled herself against the grip and lunged toward the window. As she reached, the figure let out a chilling scream that vibrated through her very bones. The sound shattered her resolve, and for a split second, she faltered, she hesitated. A surge of anger and defiance filled her. "No!" she shouted, turning back to face the figure. "You want to take me? I refuse to be part of your tragedy." The entity froze, its features momentarily solidifying. The sorrowful forms intertwined, waiting, pleading. The anguish on their faces twisted into something she recognized, the pure instinct to survive. "Get out. Please, you have to let me go." Sarah pushed through, each word a desperate plea. But the whispers grew louder, and the room spun around her. The entity began to convulse, shaking with rage or maybe distress, she couldn't tell. Shadows lunged at her, swirling like a storm, desperate to pull her back into the darkness. As Sarah reached the window, she saw the streetlight outside flicker, illuminating a path, a tangible reminder of life outside the suffocating darkness. She was so close. In a frantic motion, she threw the window open, shattering years of sealed sorrow with a single action. Fresh air rushed in, but so did something else. A distant, echoing laughter followed her, a promise and a warning that drummed against her ears. "Sarah, don't look away," echoed her phone one last time. Then, with a final surge, she broke free from the cold grasp and rolled out onto the grass below, gasping for air. The entity's cries echoed in the night, fading yet somehow eternal. She lay there, heart pounding, but she didn't feel safe. The laughter lingered, whispering a sinister question: is this truly over? Shaking, she pulled herself up, looking back at the darkened community center. Rain began to fall, washing away the remnants of her fear. But inside, she knew something had followed her. Her phone buzzed again, and in the glow of its screen, a stark message appeared: "It's not done with you yet." She froze at the revelation. What had she unleashed? With dread building in her chest, Sarah turned to leave, but an icy chill crawled down her spine. A fleeting shadow darted into the light, and she realized she was still not alone. What new terror awaited her in the shadows? And who else might be hunting her? The cold rain soaked through her clothes as Sarah stumbled away from the community center. With every step, her heart pounded louder, drowning out the unsettling laughter that echoed in her mind. She glanced back, anxiety twisting her stomach. She could still feel it, the watchful gaze of the entity, hovering just beyond the veil between worlds. The path ahead twisted like a dark joke, shimmering under the spray of rain and streetlight. She was free, or so she thought. But freedom felt hollow, a gnawing dread gnawed at her insides. It wasn't just the entity chasing her, there was something else, lurking just beyond the flow of her senses. With trembling hands, she swiped her phone, illuminating the screen. "It's not done with you yet." The message taunted her, pixelated letters flickering like ghostly whispers. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to move. Around her, the once familiar neighborhood felt foreign and threatening, shadows lurking in every corner. The houses that bordered the street seemed to loom closer, leaning in as if to listen to her fear. And then she heard a rustling sound that broke the monotony of rain. Not just the wind this time, but something else. Panic surged again, and she quickened her pace, heart racing like a trapped bird. It came again, a whisper on the wind. Sarah, the voice echoed softly, as if it were calling to her from beneath the damp earth. "Who is there?" She called out, her voice shaking with every syllable. No response. Just the heavy rain and the hollow sound of her own breath. She shook her head, pushing the thought from her mind. A trick of the storm, a wayward breeze, nothing to worry about. But the shadows deepened. They grew bolder, moving with her, stretching and shrinking as if they had a life of their own. She was not alone, not anymore. She picked up speed, weaving past gardens, overgrown lawns full of creeping weeds. The hairs on her neck prickled, each step reverberating with a pulse of urgency. As she rounded the corner, she stopped dead in her tracks. Her old friend Max stood at the end of the street, his silhouette barely visible through the sheets of rain. But something wasn't right. He didn't look like his usual self. There was darkness around him, a heaviness that felt wrong, like the air had turned dense and suffocating. "Sarah," he called again, but the words came out garbled, distorted, echoing off the pavement. She took a hesitant step forward, identity clawing at her mind. Hadn't he disappeared weeks ago? Missing posters hung around town, a grim reminder of her friend, now standing before her in this nightmare. "I saw you," his voice slid like ice down her spine. "Max? Is that really you?" she asked, confusion swirling with dread. "Help me," he whispered, the plea drowning in the rain. "It's coming for you. It knows what you did." The shadows thrummed with an unearthly energy, dancing, swirling, shifting. All at once, a flash of anger surged through Sarah. Tips of her fingers tingled, an instinct deep in her gut screaming that she needed to escape. The entity hadn't just followed her, it had reached deeper, mourning over the loss of its victims through the veil, and now, it had come to collect. "Stay back!" she yelled, but the shadows around Max twisted grotesquely, pulling him deeper into their abyss. His eyes fled from her, understanding the threat that loomed closer. But it was too late. Rising above him, the entity materialized, blacker than night, weaving through the droplets of rain like smoke escaping a fire. A scream erupted from her as she turned, every instinct telling her to run. Onward she sprinted, feet pounding against the pavement. Ahead stood an alley, dark and beckoning somewhere to hide. But was that a refuge, or another trap? As she skidded into the mouth of the alley, another chilling laugh trailed behind her like a specter, promising that this was just the beginning. What awaited in the shadows of the alley? Would the voices of the past soon join the fray, or was there a way out? Sarah plunged deeper into the alley, the heavy rain pounding down relentlessly as she pressed her back against the cold, damp wall, breathless. Each heartbeat thudded in her ears, drowning out the dark whispers swirling in her mind. She strained to listen over the rush of water, hoping for silence, safety, but the echo of laughter still trailed behind her, a sinister reminder that the entity was closer now. The alley appeared to stretch endlessly, littered with debris. Foul smells clung to her, sharp and rancid. Flickering lights cast strange shadows that danced along the bricks. She could see them swirl like the remnants of a nightmare. And in the dimness, lurking corners seemed to inch closer, merging into one frightening mass. "Max," she whispered, the name escaping her lips like a prayer. The image of her friend twisted into something unimaginable, his face melting into despair, distorted by the shadows. Was he gone? Was this nightmare all that remained of him? She shook her head, wiping the tears and rain from her cheeks, forcing herself to focus. She couldn't let this darkness consume her too. Then came a sound, a scrape against the bricks. Her breath hitched as she turned, peering into the abyss of shadows. The night felt alive, crawling with something just out of sight. "Get a grip, Sarah," she muttered, trying to steady her racing pulse. She couldn't afford to be paralyzed with fear. Before she could move again, the laughter returned, louder, closer this time. It was joined by an echoing chant. "Sarah, join us, join us." It was Max's voice mingling with the merciless rhythm of the rain, and it made her skin crawl. The shadows around her grew, creeping like smoke, curling and twisting. They reached for her, hungry to swallow her whole. She pushed harder against the wall, her palms slick and clammy. There had to be a way out, she had to escape. Gripping her phone tightly, she activated the flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. The harsh light revealed shapes in the alley, figures etched in shadow, faces twisted in eternal torment. They were ghastly, former residents of this forsaken space, frozen in a nightmare of their own. Run! She shouted to no one, to herself, plunging deeper into the alley. She didn't dare look back, knowing that the sinister laughter could erupt again like a lioness roar ready to devour its prey. The walls seemed to close in around her, constricting as she gasped for air. With each step she took, the whispers intensified. "Where are you going, Sarah? You can't hide from it. You belong with us now." She stumbled upon a door set in the alley's far wall, just a sliver of hope glimmering in the night. The rusted handle was slick and cold. She turned it, feeling a rush of relief as it opened. She stepped inside, flooding the cramped space with her trembling light. But the moment she crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind her as if it had a life of its own. Darkness enveloped her again, pulling her into its cold embrace. "Sarah," a voice crooned from within the room, smooth yet sinister. It wasn't Max's voice, it was something else entirely. "You found us." The shadows coiled around her ankles, anchoring her in place, and as her heartbeat echoed in the silence, she realized with a cold jolt, the entity wasn't just chasing her. It had set a trap. A chilling laugh reverberated around her, seeping into her very bones. Could she ever truly escape? Darkness pressed in closer. As the figures began to materialize from the corners, what horror awaited her in this new nightmare? The room felt alive, the air thick with dread. Shadows slithered along the walls, whispering secrets that Sarah couldn't grasp. She pressed her back against the wooden door, her heart pounding against her ribs like a wild animal desperate to escape its cage. An unsettling chill wrapped around her, a cruel reminder that she was far from safe. "Sarah," the voice lingered, seductive and potent. Was it calling her? Or inviting her? She squinted into the darkness, desperately searching for the source. Jagged forms shifted, their edges blurring in and out of her vision, each flicker tantalizingly close yet excruciatingly far. Was it her imagination, or did they hunger for her? The flashlight flickered as if sensing her growing unease. She fumbled, squeezing it tighter, her fingers already cold and slick. With a deep breath, she swayed away from the door, testing the space around her, each creak of the floorboards loud and intrusive. The room was small, the walls cloaked in peeling paint. Cobwebs hung like ghostly veils, swaying ever so slightly as if welcoming her into the fold of the forgotten. "Max!" she shouted, desperation tearing through her. Silence engulfed her. No laughter, no echoing chant, only quiet, punctuated by her ragged breaths. Fear clawed at her throat. What if she had entered a prison with no escape? Then she noticed them, figures emerging from the dark corners, shadows merging into human forms. Their faces were obscured, mouths twisted into expressions that reflected agony as if caught between two worlds. She felt a pang of sorrow mixed with terror. Were they trapped like her, or were they part of something darker? "You shouldn't have come here," a whisper floated down from one of the figures, barely audible over the beating of her heart. "Get away from me." She screamed and turned to run, but there was no way out. The door offered no solace now. A narrow window lay far above her head, too small for escape. Panic ignited inside her, igniting her limbs. She turned, only to find a wall of shadow standing solid, blocking her path. As the shapes moved closer, their features began to sharpen. Each face held a story, a fate written in despair. One figure stepped forward, extending a skeletal hand, fingers long and twisted. "Sarah, we need you." Need? The word struck her like a physical blow. Need me for what? The laughter erupted again, echoing off the walls. "Join us, accept the darkness." The words dripped with a sickly sweet promise. Chills crept up her spine. She was part of this nightmare, whether she wanted it or not. Sarah turned, her instincts screaming for her to escape. Out of sheer desperation, she swiped the flashlight in front of her, its beam cutting jaggedly across the figures. For a moment, they recoiled as if burned. "Stay away!" she shouted. But the shadows only surged forward, unrelenting, greater in number than before. She stumbled back, panic blurring her vision. The shadows were more ubiquitous, each one a dark promise of eternity. She was losing her grip. "Sarah," the voice came again, softer now but laden with unearthly urgency. "Don't resist." "No." She cried out loud, feeling the weight of the voices pressing into her mind. "Leave me alone." Behind her, she felt the coldness of the door. It rattled as if acknowledging her cries. In that agonizing moment, she seized the handle, twisting it with all her strength. But it didn't budge, locked from within. The laughter rippled through the room like a wave, sending her heart plummeting. She spun around, the faces now a mass of desperation and allure. "You belong to us," they chanted, their voices twisting into a haunting melody, mingling with the sounds of the storm outside. "No." With a surge of energy, she lunged at the nearest figure, hoping to break through. As her hand connected, a shockwave pulsed through her body, a blinding flash overtaking her senses. In that instant, all shadows froze, and she caught a glimpse of something beyond their twisted faces, a light, faint yet beckoning. But before she could make sense of it, darkness surged in like a tidal wave, engulfing her mind and pulling her deeper into the abyss. The last shred of consciousness held on, gripping the image of the light desperately. What was happening? Was this the end or a beginning? Then, a voice echoed in her mind, a sound that felt like home but was laced with terror. "You cannot escape," it hissed, reverberating against her thoughts like a cold breeze. "You will understand soon enough." And in that chilling moment, Sarah felt the walls around her begin to shift, the air thickening with inevitability. Was she really trapped, or was there a way to break free? Was the light she glimpsed an escape, or was it merely another illusion crafted by the shadows? As the world faded into inky blackness, she knew one thing: she had to find out. She had to try, but at what cost? The darkness squeezed tighter around her, swirling like a living thing, each breath Sarah took now strained and shallow. She could feel the weight of the shadows pressing in, a suffocating mist that threatened to swallow her whole. In that murky abyss, the cold held a peculiar kind of weight, layering dread onto dread. "Sarah," the voice came again, laced with urgency, luring her deeper into their embrace. Visions of the light flickered, teasing her consciousness like a cruel mirage. "Take my hand." Every fiber of her being screamed to resist. If she reached out, what would she unleash? Did other souls exist beyond this unnerving realm, or had she crossed into a dimension where hope expired? The chilling promises hung heavy in the air, thick and oppressive, wrapping around her throat until she could barely breathe. With a surge of courage, Sarah called out, desperate to shatter the grip of despair. "What do you want from me?" Her voice echoed back, warped and distorted, as if the walls themselves mocked her pleas. "Your choice," came the reply, each word slithering through the shadows like a snake. Just then, she felt fingers graze her arm, cold and unnaturally light. She flinched, instinctively pulling away, but the grip tightened almost possessively. Panic clawed at her again, and she lashed out, swinging wildly in the engulfing dark. The figure withdrew, momentarily dazed by her fervor. In that fleeting instant, the flashlight flickered back to life, illuminating the faces that surrounded her. They were twisted and anguished, their eyes wide with longing and desperation. No longer merely shadows, they appeared as victims, lost souls forever tethered to this dark realm. Yet, even amid their suffering, they radiated a horrifying allure, beckoning her to join them. "Join us, Sarah," the closest figure whispered, its voice dripping sweet as honey. "We are stronger together." "No." She was trembling now, the fear becoming a pulsing energy in her limbs. "Help me. Please." A small part of her hoped, in her heart of hearts, that one of them would understand. That they would break their own chains and help pull her out. Their mouths twisted into unnatural smiles. "We can free you, but it demands a price." They leaned closer, their breath a chill against her skin. "Accept your fate, you'll never be alone again." Sarah swallowed hard, her mind racing. What did they mean by price? There had to be a way out, something she hadn't noticed before, some weakness in their dark spell. With frantic resolve, she took a bold step back, scanning the room. There had to be something, anything she could leverage against them. "Oh, sweet Sarah," another voice, distant yet intimate, wrapped around her like a suffocating shroud. "You are perfect for us." She felt their gaze constricting her, drawing her into their collective will. Drawing from a deep well of strength, she steadied herself. "I want to become like you. I want to." But the shadows shifted once again, forming into a swirling vortex of despair that threatened to pull her into its depths. In that moment of peril, Sarah recalled the flash of light earlier, a beacon of salvation she almost lost. Heart pounding, she clenched her fists, steadying her resolve. "I want to give in," she cried. "Resistance is futile." They howled, a cacophony of voices crashing against her. As the darkness surged, shadows twisted and reshaped, creating surreal and distorted phantoms. Wails echoed, reverberating off the walls, voices layered over one another, the cries of the hopeless struggling to retain their existence. They were all so close, yet she could see the fractures in their forms, the memories woven into their agony. And just as she felt herself teetering on the brink, time seemed to unravel. The edges of the shadows shimmered like a mirage. There it was again, that faint glimmer, solid, real, and edging into her sight. In that moment of clarity, as the shadows lunged forward, Sarah hurled herself toward the light, desperately reaching. She could feel cold fingers attempting to drag her back, but the warmth of the light enveloped her, washing away the chill. But as she grasped for it, would it lead to freedom, or would it deepen her descent into the shadows? A flash erupted, consuming her vision, and she felt herself torn between two worlds. What awaited her on the other side? Would the price for liberation be even greater than she feared? The light enveloped her, blinding in its intensity. It felt like stepping out from underwater, the oppressive grip of the shadows loosening as she burst through the surface. But that sense of relief was short-lived. As the brightness faded, Sarah's surroundings were replaced by a barren landscape, desolate and haunting. The sky was an unsettling shade of gray, low and heavy, as if it bore the weight of thousands of secrets. Cracked ground stretched out endlessly, dotted with shadowy figures drifting through the haze. Their faces were obscured, blurred like a bad photograph. She felt their presence, but their intent remained shrouded in mystery. "Welcome, Sarah," the voices whispered, an eerie chorus that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Each syllable carried the remnants of their former lives, lost souls yearning for something just beyond reach. Confusion thrummed through her. "Where am I?" "You are among the forgotten," one figure finally stepped forward, its outline flickering like a flame. "Here, we await our release, just as you sought yours." "Release?" she echoed, dread seeping into her veins. "You mean you want me to join you?" "Join?" The figure's laugh was sharp, echoing through the air like the rattle of bones. "Dear Sarah, it is not about wanting. It is about need. You are here because you have drawn us. You are meant for this." Panic seized her. They saw her as a beacon, a potential vessel to pull them out of their desolation. "No. You don't understand," she cried out, her voice breaking under the weight of terror. "I'll find my way back. I won tea," but before she could finish, the ground shook violently, vibrating under her feet. Cracks splintered the earth around her, and shadows erupted from within, racing toward her like ravenous beasts. They twisted and coiled, each more horrifying than the last, suffocating her in a rush of suffocating blackness. "Your choice is inevitable," they shrieked, their haunting chants merging into a chaotic symphony. "Join us or be consumed." She stumbled back, heart racing. This was worse than the darkness, this was a void with no end. She remembered the warmth of the light and that fleeting moment of possibility. She would not surrender to these lost souls. With her heart pounding in her chest, Sarah turned and ran. The shadows clawed at her, their whispers beckoning her to succumb. But her feet pressed forward, each stride fueled by determination. She could not let fear dictate her fate. "Find the light, Sarah," she yelled, as if convincing herself. "You are stronger than this." Ahead, she spotted a flickering glow, far more faint than she remembered but real. The terrain crumbled behind her, shadows bursting forth in a fevered pursuit, their cries mingling with the rush of her blood in her ears. As she drew closer, the light pulsed like a heartbeat, brightening and dimming with each step. "Hold on," she whispered, resolve intertwining with fear. Just a little longer, but as her fingers clenched into the warmth, an overwhelming force yanked her back. The shadows surged, furious and ravenous, grasping at her limbs, insatiable. "You cannot escape us." The light flickered violently, and a sharp pain sliced through her arm, tearing at her grip. As she fought desperately against the encroaching dark, a realization struck: this was not just a fight for her life, but for every soul trapped here. The price they demanded was deeper than she imagined. With one final surge of will, Sarah roared against the darkness, "I will not be your vessel." But could her defiance be enough? Would it truly grant release, or would it seal her fate among the forgotten forever? The shadows hesitated, momentarily faltering. Would this moment of doubt bring salvation, or would a new horror emerge from the depths? The moment hung heavy, wrapped in an eerie silence that felt almost tangible. The shadows paused, confusion flickering across their twisted forms. Sarah took a breath, her chest heaving as she fought the darkness clinging to her. This was her shot, a fragile thread of hope woven through the overwhelming despair surrounding her. Now, she thought, knowing she needed to act fast. The light crackled, more vividly now, as if responding to her desperation. She lunged toward it, her body feeling more like a marionette pulled by unseen strings than her own. The moment her fingers brushed the luminosity, the shadows recoiled with a collective hiss, their forms writhing in indignation. "You cannot hold on to that light," they shrieked. "It's a betrayal to us." The brightness enveloped her like a warm embrace, yet a chill ran through her spine. She was not safe. She could sense it. She was in a race against time, and the shadows were relentless. She had to find out how to harness that blurry radiance and use it as a weapon against her pursuers. "What do you want, then?" she screamed, her voice raw. "What would you do with me?" "Offer your soul," the leader of the phantoms hissed, unable to approach the light. "And we shall share our power." Sarah gritted her teeth, repulsion filling her. "No. You're just using me." The figures laughed, their voices melding into a sickening harmony. "The truth hurts, doesn't it? You think yourself different, but you're just like us." She shook her head, denial washing over her. "I'm not. I'm fighting for something more." But the shadows drew nearer, their faces twisting in grotesque mockery of human emotions. They had their hooks in her, and the more she resisted, the tighter they pulled. With every heartbeat, she felt their desperation, their need, growing more fevered. Inflated by despair, anger, and hopelessness, the chorus swelled to a thunderous roar. The ground trembled beneath her feet, trying to swallow her whole. Sarah stumbled but maintained her grip on the light. It pulsed in distress, a warning that if she faltered, the shadows would consume her entirely. "Keep going," she whispered to herself, inching slowly through the oppressive dark as the light formed a small bubble around her. Suddenly, a voice soft and cold, almost tender, broke through the din. "Sarah, don't fight. Let go." It was a voice she recognized. It was her mother. "Mom?" The warmth blurred, pulling at her heartstrings, déjà vu flooding her mind. Memories twisted into nightmarish shapes, time lost its line. "Is that really you? Come to me, my love. I can free you from this place." Her mother's soft tone twisted, revealing an unsettling fragility that curled around her heart. "No." Sarah screamed, tears streaming down her face. "You're not real. You're just a shadow, like them. Are you so sure of that? Are you absolutely certain? The shadows clawed, crept around the perimeter of her fragile light, their whispers seducing her thoughts. Memories flooded back. The last moments of her mother before she left this world. Had she really died? It felt like yesterday. The warmth had returned, but with it, a shadow of doubt. As Sarah stood at the crossroads of her mind, the shadows circled tighter, their hunger palpable, their pleas insidious. She was caught between yearning and terror, and the pulse of the light dimmed, struggling under the weight of her conflicted emotions. A question erupted anew within her: what if accepting them was the only way to survive? What if? The moment teetered on the precipice, balance breaking. And as shadows crept closer, she noticed a new figure among them, different from the rest. Its eyes shone with an unnatural light. It looked directly at her, and for the first time, she felt fear seep into her bones. Join me, Sarah, and learn the truth. What truth remained hidden in this nightmarish realm? She swallowed hard, staring into those ghastly eyes. Would she reveal herself or stay lost among the forgotten? The question seeped into the very air around her, a heavy anticipation binding her as she awaited her next move. The shadows twisted, reaching out with fingers of darkness, each whisper carrying a promise of power and safety. Sarah felt the weight of despair push down on her, an overwhelming tide threatening to drown her in its depth. Yet, even amid this chaos, she clung to the faint glimmer of the light, willing it to grow stronger. No! She shouted again, each word fueled by defiance. I won't succumb to you. The shadows faltered, pulling back momentarily as if her resistance had struck a nerve. In that brief pause, she forced herself to focus, drawing strength from the memories of her children and the overwhelming need to survive. They needed her. She needed to fight for her reality, the life she was meant to have. Do you think you can change what has been written? The shadow leader laughed, its voice echoing through the air like rolling thunder. You're just a lost soul like the rest of us. Despite the chilling atmosphere, Sarah felt a flicker of resistance blossom within her. No, she insisted, her voice growing steadier. I will not be one of you. I refuse to let my fears trap me. I've lost too much already. The shadows writhed in agitation, their whispers intensifying as they reassembled, shifting and blending into chaotic forms that teetered on the edge of existence. The flickering light responded to her rallying spirit, pulsing brighter, suffusing the air with warmth that felt like a shield against the encroaching dark. We will consume you. They shrieked, closing in once again, their swarm a cacophony of tormented souls. You cannot escape your fate. But Sarah stood her ground, eyes fixed on the pulsating light. If I have to face you, then so be it. I won't yield. With a sudden rush, she lunged toward the intensity of the light. It surged around her, wrapping her in a protective embrace. As she neared the core of the glow, she felt it vibrate with promise, like a living entity guiding her forward. Let me go. She screamed, drawing in every ounce of energy deep within. The darkness recoiled, shadows hissing and howling, trembling against the bright force she was harnessing. They twisted and contorted, their forms flickering between agonizing silhouettes and desperate wraiths. As the light enveloped her, memories danced across her mind, her children's laughter, the warmth of their embraces. She felt an unrelenting determination coursing through her veins. No more fear. No more pain. Drawing from that pure love, she thrust her hand into the center of that radiant glow, feeling tendrils of energy snake around her fingers, into her skin. As her grip tightened, she unleashed a vibrant wave of light, illuminating the shadows like the dawn breaking through a night that had lingered far too long. The shadows screamed, the sound piercing through the air as they began to dissipate. Whips of darkness unraveled, dissolving like smoke in bright sunlight. You will regret this. Echoed their cries, wavering as the darkness folded in on itself. With one final surge of light, the phantom screeched, each voice melding into a single chorus of anguish that blurred into silence. One by one, the tortured souls lost their grasp and were pulled into the void, a final flicker before they vanished. As the shadows began to retract, Sarah felt a warmth envelop her heart, a bittersweet release. The weight that had anchored her diminished, the air became lighter, the ground less oppressive. The essence of freedom washed over her, guiding her out of the dwindling darkness. In that moment, she felt a tremendous shift. The barren landscape began to sparkle like dew beneath the sun, colors bending into vibrant hues that danced around her. The shadows were gone, a realm of nightmares had faded into the distance, swallowed by light. But she knew this story wasn't finished. As she stood there, a soft breeze tugged at her hair, carrying with it familiar scents and laughter. Her children were out there, waiting for her, their faith never wavering. With newfound clarity, Sarah pushed forward, returning toward the path illuminated by the dawn. Each step felt lighter, filled with purpose. Life awaited her beyond this haunting experience. She turned once more, ready to leave the darkness behind forever. Let this be a lesson for all: darkness can only exist where fear takes root. Shine your light and others will follow, she whispered to herself, committing her newfound wisdom to the depths of her soul. As the world around her transformed, she felt empowered, reborn. It wasn't just about fighting the shadows, it was about embracing the light and forging paths back to those who needed her most. With the sun breaking through the horizon, she hurried toward home, her heart open, ready for whatever awaited her next. Now tell me, what about you? How many shadows do you let linger in your life? Are you ready to step into your light and embrace the journey ahead? You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and challenge you. Smash that like button now, it feeds the algorithm and keeps this community growing. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey, and let us talk. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to be part of this adventure. Join us as we face the next haunting tale together.